courtroom was silent as Elon Musk entered, dressed in his usual understated style, without a team of high-powered lawyers or advisors by his side. The judge, attorneys, and spectators alike expected a straightforward hearing. A billionaire, CEO facing a $3.2 million fine for allegedly violating a gag order. But what happened next was anything but ordinary. Musk sat down at the defendant's table, his expression calm and unreadable. The judge, a seasoned legal expert with decades of experience, began addressing the case, outlining Musk's supposed violation in clear terms. The prosecution was confident, prepared to argue that Musk had knowingly defied the court's order and should be held accountable with a heavy financial penalty. But then, Musk raised his hand and requested to speak. His voice was steady, unshaken. Instead of arguing emotionally or challenging the judge outright, he calmly pointed out a little-known legal clause, one buried deep within the regulations governing the case. It was a loophole so obscure that even the legal experts in the room had overlooked it. The judge's expression shifted slightly, a flicker of curiosity crossing his face. Musk continued, methodically explaining how the language of the gag order had been misinterpreted, and why, according to the very rules of the legal system, he had not actually violated any enforceable provision. He referenced previous cases, citing specific legal precedents with the precision of someone who had spent hours studying the fine print. The prosecution scrambled to counter his argument, but Musk remained composed, effortlessly dismantling each point with factual clarity. The courtroom, initially expecting a routine ruling, now found itself witnessing something extraordinary. The judge leaned forward, carefully reviewing the documents in front of him. There was a moment of silence, one that felt longer than it was. Then, after what seemed like careful deliberation, the judge did something no one had anticipated. He acknowledged that Musk had raised a valid argument, one that could not be ignored. What was supposed to be a straightforward fine suddenly became a legal turning point. Some in the room whispered in disbelief, even those who disagreed with Musk's stance. Had to admit that his ability to navigate the complexities of the legal system without the assistance of a legal team was nothing short of remarkable. It wasn't about wealth, status, or power. It was about knowledge, preparation, and an unshakable confidence in standing up to authority with facts rather than force. As Musk left the courtroom, the weight of what had just happened lingered in the air. Reporters rushed to cover the unexpected development, and legal analysts debated the implications of his argument. What started as a seemingly routine case had transformed into one of the most talked-about legal moments in recent memory. This wasn't just about winning or losing. It was a testament to what happens when someone understands the rules well enough to challenge them, not with defiance, but with intelligence. And that is why, long after the courtroom doors closed, people are still discussing what happened that day. As Elon Musk stepped out of the courthouse, the media frenzy had already begun. Cameras flashed, microphones extended toward him, and reporters bombarded him with questions. Mr. Musk, how did you find that legal loophole? Did you consult any legal experts beforehand? Do you believe this ruling sets a precedent for future cases? Musk, never one to shy away from the press, but always selective with his words, paused for a moment before answering. His response was simple, yet powerful. I read the rules. If you're going to play the game, you better know them better than anyone else. The remark sent shockwaves through legal circles. Social media erupted as clips of Musk's courtroom argument went viral. Legal analysts dissected his reasoning, some praising his brilliance, others questioning whether the loophole should have existed in the first place. Overnight, legal scholars, politicians, and the general public debated what had just transpired. Some hailed it as a masterclass in self-representation, a powerful example of how understanding the law could challenge even the most rigid systems. Others worried that Musk's maneuver might encourage future loophole exploitation, possibly undermining judicial authority. Meanwhile, back in the judge's chambers, discussions continued behind closed doors. Some of the legal experts present during the hearing admitted they had never encountered such a precise interpretation of that particular clause. The judge, despite his initial stern demeanor, was privately intrigued. He had spent his career encountering well-prepared attorneys, but rarely had he seen a non-lawyer dismantle a case with such precision. The decision to acknowledge Musk's argument had not been made lightly. The judge had been forced to weigh not just the letter of the law, but also its spirit. If Musk's reading of the order was valid, then punishing him would have meant disregarding the very foundation of legal fairness. Even those who had entered the courtroom expecting a routine penalty had left questioning the very nature of judicial interpretation. For Musk, this victory wasn't just about avoiding a fine. It was about something deeper. Throughout his career, he had defied conventions, whether in business, technology, or public discourse. He had built companies by questioning the status quo, and now he had done the same in the legal arena. Back at Tesla and SpaceX headquarters, employees followed the case closely. Many saw it as yet another example of their CEO's relentless determination. Investors, too, took notice. The stock market, unpredictable as always, reacted with a mix of volatility and excitement. Some analysts speculated that Musk's ability to outmaneuver the legal system could be a sign of even greater resilience in future business dealings. Critics, however, weren't as impressed. Some accused Musk of arrogance, arguing that the ability to find a loophole didn't necessarily mean he was right. Legal commentators on major networks debated whether his courtroom performance had strengthened or weakened public trust in the justice system. Still, one thing was undeniable. Musk had once again managed to capture the world's attention. His courtroom maneuver wasn't just a legal victory, it was a cultural moment, one that would be studied and discussed for years to come. And as the news cycle continued, with pundits analyzing every detail, Musk himself remained characteristically unfazed. The next morning, he was back to business as usual, tweeting a cryptic yet telling message. The most powerful tool isn't money, it's knowledge. As the sun rose the next morning, the legal world was still buzzing about what had transpired in that courtroom. News networks replayed clips of Musk's argument, while legal experts debated the implications of his approach. Across social media, hashtags related to the case dominated trending lists. Some praised Musk as a genius who had outsmarted the system, while others saw him as an opportunist who had found a way to exploit a flaw in the law. But Musk himself had already moved on. He arrived at Tesla's headquarters early, as he often did, meeting with engineers and executives to discuss upcoming projects. SpaceX was preparing for another test launch, Neuralink was making strides in its latest research, and the Boring Company was finalizing new developments. The legal battle that had captivated the public was just another challenge, another problem to solve, another moment where knowledge proved to be the greatest weapon. Yet, behind closed doors, the aftershocks of the courtroom showdown were still being felt. The judge who had presided over the case had spent the evening reviewing Musk's argument again. He knew this case would be cited in future legal battles, and he wanted to ensure that his ruling held up under scrutiny. He had seen countless attorneys argue cases, some of the best legal minds in the country. Yet this was different. Musk had walked in without legal counsel, without extensive notes, and yet he had systematically dismantled a case that had seemed ironclad. It wasn't just confidence, it was an understanding of the law so precise that it forced the court to reconsider its stance. Meanwhile, the prosecutors were reeling. They had assumed this would be a routine hearing, an easy case with a predictable outcome. Now, they were left questioning how they had overlooked the very clause Musk had used to defend himself. Some of them privately admitted they had underestimated him, assuming his expertise was limited to engineering and business. But Musk had proven that intelligence wasn't confined to a single field. His ability to absorb information, analyze patterns, and think strategically had allowed him to navigate a legal battle just as effectively as he did in the worlds of technology and space exploration. The public's reaction was equally divided. Some saw Musk's courtroom performance as proof that the legal system could be challenged by those who truly understood its rules. Others worried that this would embolden powerful individuals to find ways around the law rather than abide by its intent. Op-eds were written in major newspapers arguing both sides. Some legal scholars called for a review of the very loophole Musk had exploited, arguing that it exposed a flaw in the judicial system that needed to be corrected. Others suggested that his actions demonstrated why individuals should take a more active role in understanding the laws that governed them rather than relying solely on attorneys to interpret them. Wall Street took notice as well. Investors speculated on how Musk's legal victory might influence his business ventures. Would this embolden him in future regulatory battles? Would it make government agencies more cautious when challenging him? Tesla's stock fluctuated throughout the day as analysts tried to assess the broader implications. But for Musk, it was never about the stock price or the public spectacle. Later that evening, he posted another tweet, simple yet telling. Most people play the game. Some learn to change the rules. Those who had followed his career closely understood the deeper meaning behind those words. Musk had built his empire by challenging norms, disrupting industries, and refusing to accept conventional wisdom. Whether in technology, business, or now the legal system, his approach remained the same. Question everything. Learn everything, and never accept limitations. But while the world debated what had happened in that courtroom, Musk was already looking ahead. There were rockets to launch, cars to build, and new frontiers to explore. The courtroom had been just another battleground, another opportunity to prove that true power didn't come from wealth or status. It came from knowledge, strategy, and the ability to see what others missed. And as he looked toward the future, one thing was clear. This wouldn't be the last time Elon Musk would challenge the system. It was only the beginning. In the days that followed, the legal and political landscape continued to react to Musk's unexpected courtroom triumph. Law schools began dissecting the case in lectures, analyzing the loophole he had exploited, and debating whether it should be closed. Some professors called it an example of why legal language needed to be more precise, while others saw it as a brilliant demonstration of how the law was, at its core, a system of rules that could be navigated by those who understood them best. Meanwhile, inside the Justice Department, officials were quietly discussing how Musk's case might influence future legal battles involving high-profile figures. If someone as prominent as Musk could walk into a courtroom alone and overturn a multi-million-dollar penalty, what did that say about the legal system's ability to regulate corporate power? Some officials worried that his victory would embolden other CEOs and public figures to challenge legal rulings in unconventional ways. Others, however, respected his approach, acknowledging that he had not broken any laws. He had simply used the system's own framework against itself. But Musk, true to form, had already turned his attention elsewhere. He was back at SpaceX, overseeing final preparations for an upcoming Mars-bound prototype. Engineers crowded around him as he reviewed blueprints, discussing fuel efficiency, heat shielding, and launch sequences. He was just as focused as ever. undistracted by the media storm still raging around his courtroom performance. To him, the legal battle had been a necessary but temporary diversion. His real mission remained the same: advancing technology, pushing the boundaries of human capability, and preparing for a future beyond Earth. Yet, the impact of his courtroom victory was far from over. Legislators had taken notice, and a few were already drafting bills to address the legal loophole Musk had leveraged. Political commentators debated whether this was an overreaction or a necessary reform. Meanwhile, critics continued to argue that Musk's win set a dangerous precedent, while his supporters claimed it was proof that anyone, no matter how powerful, could use intelligence and preparation to challenge authority. As the weeks passed, the ruling was cited in other court cases, and attorneys began referencing Musk's argument in unrelated legal disputes. His ability to dismantle a seemingly airtight case had become a template for others looking to challenge the legal status quo. Even those who had initially dismissed him as an outsider with no formal legal training had to admit Musk had done something remarkable. He had demonstrated that knowledge, when wielded effectively, was just as powerful as any legal team or financial empire. Then, late one night, as the legal world continued to dissect his courtroom victory, Musk posted another cryptic tweet: "Every system has an exploit. The best way to fix it is to find it first." The tweet reignited discussions. Was he referring to the legal loophole he had just used? Or was he hinting at something bigger? Another system? Another challenge? Another rule set to be rewritten? Those who had followed his career knew better than to assume he was done shaking things up. And as the world debated the meaning behind his words, Musk was already deep in thought about his next move. Whether in the courtroom, in business, or beyond, one thing was certain: he was always playing the long game, and he was always 10 steps ahead. As the dust settled on Musk's courtroom victory, the conversation began to shift from the legal battle itself to the broader implications of what had happened. In boardrooms, universities, and government offices, discussions revolved around what his strategy signified. Some saw it as a brilliant example of how one person, armed with knowledge and confidence, could challenge even the most rigid institutions. Others worried that it signaled a new era where individuals with resources and intelligence could bend the legal system to their advantage. But for Musk, the courtroom had simply been another challenge, one he had met head-on, just as he had done with electric vehicles, reusable rockets, and AI. He never lingered on past victories. Instead, he was already deep in discussions with SpaceX engineers, debating the feasibility of accelerating Mars colonization efforts. At Tesla, he was pushing for innovations in battery technology that could redefine sustainable energy. And at Neuralink, breakthroughs in brain-machine interfaces were moving closer to reality. Meanwhile, the legal world continued to wrestle with the aftermath of his case. Law firms began incorporating Musk's argument into their defense strategies, while judges reviewed similar cases with a newfound awareness of how language could be interpreted in ways they hadn't anticipated. Legislators, wary of the precedent set, worked on closing loopholes to prevent future legal battles from unfolding in the same way. Yet, no matter how many adjustments were made, one undeniable truth remained. Musk had once again proven that he was not just an observer of systems, he was a disruptor of them. Whether in business, technology, or now the legal arena, he had an uncanny ability to spot weaknesses, challenge assumptions, and reshape the playing field to his advantage. As weeks turned into months, the media frenzy around the courtroom moment began to fade. The world moved on to the next big story, the next controversy, the next innovation. But those who had witnessed it firsthand knew that what had happened in that courtroom was more than just a legal victory. It was a testament to the power of intellect, strategy, and an unwavering belief in one's own understanding of the rules. And then, just as the legal world was beginning to return to normal, Musk posted one final tweet on the subject. First, principles thinking. Question everything, assume nothing, and rewrite the rules when necessary. With that, the chapter was closed. But for those who had followed the saga, one thing was clear. Whether in law, technology, or the future of humanity, Elon Musk would always be a step ahead, challenging the status quo and reshaping the world in ways no one else could predict. Never miss an episode. Subscribe now to Famous Forgotten and be part of our growing community. Hit the like button, drop a comment, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss an update.